Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got two returning guests. Very excited about this topic. We're going to try to cover it the second time now. The first time it didn't work out too well, but I think we'll make it happen in this show. Before I introduce the guests, let me introduce the other reject joining me. Ethan, what is going on, sir? How are you?
Well, I know this is going to be awesome from the pre-discussion, so thank you guys for having me and being here. Ethan Indigo Smith, writer and occasional publisher of books and a bunch of articles out there, and a few on Occult Research Institute. And yeah, appreciate anyone who wants to reach out on the usual social media. So again, thanks you guys.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you making it. And we got Frater RC back. What is going on, sir? Please let everybody know what is up with you and where they can find all your amazing work.
Frater RC, hermeticpodcast.com, hermeticmysteryschool.com, and for events, arcaneresearchsociety.com. About 2 events this year coming up in May and November in Austin, Texas. Go check it out.
Oh, wow. I have to talk to you about that one. Very interesting. All right, sir. And we got Ike Baker back. We missed him a few days ago. He's back on now. So, sir, please let everybody know what is up with you and they can find all your amazing stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, man. I feel like I'm part of the show here. It's great. It's fantastic. I appreciate it. This is gonna be a great conversation. I love talking with my brother here, my Frater, and as well as you guys. So I'm Ike Baker. I host the Arcanum channel and podcast, ARCANVM. I've got it here underneath my name on the screen. You can check everything that I do out. My books, my podcasts, my blogs, my documentary style presentations on ikebaker.com, IKEBAKER. Yeah, I'm going to be talking. We have the April 25th in Asheville. I'm hosting the Asheville, North Carolina. I'm hosting the 2026 Southeastern Masonic Symposium. So this will be my 3rd year doing this. It's going to be a full day of presentations open to the public, and it's there is digital access for actually very, very reasonable price. That's gonna be great. I'm giving a talk. Colin Conkright from American Esoteric Channel is gonna be speaking, and John Michael Greer is gonna be the keynote speaker. We're gonna be covering luminaries of esoteric masonry. So each one of us is going to select one particular luminary in esotericism, particularly in the Freemasonic sector, and kind of go over that. It's open to the public, men, women, Masons, non-Masons. So yeah, you can learn more about that. I will put a link in the chat, and I am speaking at a Nokia Con this year in Austin, Texas in November for and with Frater RC, which is going to be fantastic.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Great stuff.
He's not just speaking.
Sorry, go ahead, Frater.
He'll be speaking, he'll be presenting, but he's also, I believe, playing the drums.
Sure, yeah.
We're following Joseph Peterson's recommendation of instead of hiring local talent for events, just doing a jam with the talent that's baked in. We tried that last year, and it went really well. And so we're upscaling this year: full band, drum kit, saxophone player, you name it. Because there's a lot of professional musicians in the occult community.
Yeah, I knew a lot of people that were into music. Sure.
Yeah. Send me the backline as soon as you can.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what I'm playing. Well,
nice. All right, so this episode will be the Golden Dawn. Yeah, both of you guys. I mean, I guess it's safe to say you have experience with the Golden Dawn, so figured I'd bring you both on for that to be the best people to speak on it. I don't know who wants to start first or whatever. Maybe Frater RC, if you want to maybe explain I don't know, just your experience with it, and then I don't know who wants to start. I have 2 people to pick here.
Yeah, so I was initiated into neophyte first for beginning of November 1996 when I was 15, just starting grade 10. It was a long admission process. I had to get, a waiver signed by parents who had to be interviewed as well. And even then, they almost didn't let me in. And many members years later came up to me and would said to me after I became an adept. I became an adept at the end of high school, a year after high school, when I was 19 at Solstice 2000. Then I went into the Inner Order, and I didn't think I was going to get into the Inner Order at all. Honestly, I was 18 months in Portal, which is, I mean, that only happens usually if someone is either a slacker, or if they're not a slacker, it means they really come upon some of the hardest work their soul needs to do in this life. And so I did persevere though, and yeah, and had a great experience for my 7 years, 3 as a in the Outer Order and 5 in the Inner Order, essentially. I was Imperator of the Temple and Chief Adept in Canada when we separated from the American branch, the founding branch of the Order, and I just shut things down then and moved on to doctoral studies with Nicholas Goodrick Clark, and then got back to various things years later. I dove into Druidic training and Bardic training in a very, very real way, not in a book way, but in a living in a tent in an island off the west coast of Ireland way, and seeing what the real magic was like there. So yeah, Golden Dawn was the basis of my magical life, and continues to be to this day.
That's awesome. One thing oh, go ahead, Ethan. Go ahead.
Sorry. I just was curious. How did you find yourself involved with that at such a young age? Where most of us
Good
in high
question. So glad you asked. Well, I was initiated at age 7 into yoga, and then again at age 10. That's because I grew up in a Maharishi family, so no exposure to Christianity as a child, that's for sure. It was Bhagavad Gita in my household. And so I'd been meditating twice a day since the age of 7, which I was very excited to do, because growing up, seeing your parents meditate an hour twice a day and doing the flying mantra, the bouncing, that they're famous for in transcendental meditation, and all of that, you're really excited to finally be allowed to partake in those mysteries. And but after doing that for several years, my parents divorced, and I was living with my mom in an OTO oasis. And when we left there one dark and stormy night, being chased out by the very abusive man who ran the place, probably high on cocaine, I guarantee. And so the books of the EGC priestess there got mixed up. Her Israel Regardi Tree of Life got mixed up in my things. And so by around the age of 12, I discovered it and started reading it, discovered the Kabbalistic cross and the Tatwa, and sort of understood what Regardi was going on about. And then that led me to write a grade 8 biography for our big grade 8 project. It's a big deal when you're 13 years old or 12 years old, but in retrospect, it was pretty silly. But I did it on Crowley because I found him absolutely preposterous and absurd. And I was hoping to shock my classmates and teachers. But unfortunately, I submitted it to dear old British Mrs. Willoughby in the Waldorf School, and hoping she'd be shocked. And she's like, "Oh, Alistair Crowley. Oh, yes, I know quite a lot about him because of, I was like, what? And she's like, they were anthroposophists. They're Rudolf Steiner. She's like, yeah. And I went home to my mom. I was like, how come my teachers know who Alistair Crowley is? And she's like, well, because Rudolf Steiner was an occultist. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. My school wasn't founded by an occultist. And she takes a book off the shelf written by Steiner, and it says An Outline of Occult Science. And I was like, what the fuck? And so yeah, there continued my journey into Wicca, Druidry, Hermeticism, and Donald Michael Craig, and then attempted self-initiation into adepthood way too early. Made me through a spiritual crisis and a spiritual attack by some spirit not either warning me or not happy with my hubris, unbeknownst to me, my unknown hubris, made me realize there was real training that could actually be necessary outside of books and just meditation. So I took a chance on a group of men and women and called up the local Golden Dawn Temple after hearing from a reliable source that they were not a bunch of nut jobs, because I had already encountered quite a few of those in my short life. And and I ended up having just a absolutely remarkable experience, getting very rigorously trained. That's putting it lightly. We were famously hardcore up at Temple Tahuti in Vancouver, and that temple was founded by Nineveh Frater, now famously known as the great Arabic adept Nineveh Shadrach. And thank God he took a chance on me, and he himself was initiated in the GD at 16. So there was there was definitely a resonance there between he and I. And he gave me my motto, Frater RC, broken of chains.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
You have questions? I have answers.
If I think you kind of answered it a little bit. I mean, obviously how you got into the Golden Dawn, but one thing I did want to ask you before we move over to Ike, I guess what is it about the Golden Dawn that like I guess attracted you or keeps you there instead of going to a different order? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it about the Golden Dawn that really is like, this is for me?
Was that for me or Ike?
Oh no, for you. Before I moved on to Ike.
Oh, okay. What made me think that it was really for me? Yeah, so it's interesting. I didn't join the Golden Dawn because I wanted to join the Golden Dawn. I wanted to learn seriously. I wanted to learn what I didn't know, because Don Craig's quick little rapido system of self-adepthood, went catastrophically wrong when I tried to enact it at my Wiccan midsummer event with my two buddies. And like, we're talking full on attack by an apparition, full body paralysis. They had to like literally attack a non-corporeal entity because I was just paralyzed. It sounds like science fiction, but it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I was like, yeah, okay, well, I already knew that this stuff was real and the spirits were real and all this, because I grew up in that sort of culture with the Eastern mysteries. But this solidified it and made it terrifyingly real. So yeah, I was like, I need to learn from serious people who know this serious stuff. And so yeah, the Golden Dawn, it seemed I wasn't really into the initiation idea or the ceremonies or any of the titles of the officers, or a lot of the stuff didn't appeal to me, but they had a very well outlined curriculum in that order, with really complete grade manuals and with active daily with classes. That's the main thing. I had actual lessons in a temple by people who had been doing it nonstop and who learned it from other people who had been doing it nonstop. And the first time I saw them start a Kabbalistic cross, my first mentor there, this Practicus guy, who actually I was not going to join until I saw him come down the stairs at the end of my rotation, and he had a like Christian cross on. I was like, oh, if there's some Christian dude here, I bet it's probably pretty safe, because I came from the yoga, Eastern world, paganism, and Christians seemed like safe, vanilla, white bread people to me. And if there's one of them here, then nothing too weird could be going on, because Christians don't do anything wrong ever. And yeah, when the first time I saw him do a LRP, I was blown over. I was like, oh yeah, okay, so it's not just the advanced stuff I don't know. Like, I don't have a deep understanding of even the most basic stuff. That's what I realized, despite having been practicing magic already for 3 years and meditating nonstop for almost 8 by that point. What drew me into the Golden Dawn was just the training I got from it.
Yeah, it seems a lot more studious than other places. Like, not that I'm trying to promote the Golden Dawn, but before I joined the OTO, I would have preferred the Golden Dawn. There just wasn't one that I could find near me. So it's like, I guess I'm stuck with the OTO. It's 25 minutes away.
Yeah, it's not normal, I think, to have weekly classes at a temple. I think that was unique about our temple and our order. And then the way we ran it, it was 24/7 by the end of it. When I shut it down, it was at its peak. It was just getting bigger. Like, if I hadn't shut it down that year when I did, by the end of that year, we would have had probably another 70 members join. And locally, it was just crazy. So we closed it down at the absolute peak of its possibilities, which is too bad. But, that's what happens sometimes. Yeah, so the classes, the interactions, the learning from hundreds of people, and that's the advantage of being in a big order, which is like Ike knows about this. Like, there's a lot of struggles that come with being in large groups of humans of any sort, government, church, corporations, you name it. But the advantage is you get to learn not just from 10 or 20 people, but hundreds, if not thousands. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Like that. No, I definitely get that too. That was one of the main reasons I really kind of stick with the OTO or went, is because I was able to talk to other people there and learn from them. So I get that. Ike, so with you, I guess, I mean, I'm pretty sure we probably already heard a little bit, but maybe give us a little bit of an idea about your situation getting into the Golden Dawn and why you chose that.
Similar situation. Well, not really a similar situation, but the same kind of. I didn't know what the Golden Dawn was really when I first encountered it. I'll make this short because I've told this story probably like literally over 100 times now. But
All right.
for anybody that hasn't heard it, I was about 19 when I figured out what the Golden Dawn was or found it. My aunt had a tenant who was a very nice lady, very quiet. She threw herself in front of a train. She asked me to come over because when she went down into the basement apartment, it was filled with books. This lady was a hoarder, journals wrapped in cellophane, etc. So, these things are deceptively heavy when you put them in a box. She said, "Hey, can you come over and help me move all this stuff? Bring a friend, etc." So I was down there and it was creepy. But it was kind of cool. Lots of books. I've always loved books. And one book caught just the cover design caught my eye. And I still have it. It was called the Oracle of Kabbalah by Richard Seidman. Now I had kind of studied Kabbalah topically by way of like what I would consider like History Channel Dan Brown occultism at that time. Cause it was like the early 2000s and I was a suburban Long Island kid that I didn't really have a weird kind of background. I lived in a house full of like my entire Italian family and, the Italian side. I'm also Greek, and that was it. So I didn't get into it really early like Frater RC did, but I was trying to figure it out. So it just so happens this book catches my eye, and it's a very thin book. And I say, "Hey, do you mind if I take this?" She's like, "Sure." So I walk around my neighborhood in like a day. I read it again. It was very thin, and I wasn't necessarily like more overwhelmingly educated than I was before I read the book, but something was like, this is important. So I went on the white pages or yellow pages on the internet back when we used to use them. I typed in Long Island Kabbalah Study Group. Guy's information came up. I got in touch with him. I said, I'm interested in the Kabbalah group. And he's like, that doesn't meet anymore, but there's this other thing. And the other thing was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And so that's how I found it. And when I got to them, I was like, I grew up Catholic and stuff, and I was interested in Freemasonry, Kabbalah. I studied it, but I didn't realize that there were living groups of people that actually like thought they were doing magic. Like I was so confused. I'm like, what is this, Harry Potter shit? Like, what do you think you're doing? So I flaked. I was a no call, no show to my first initiation. And then several years later, my life reached a total collapse. Everything just was destroyed in a matter of months. And something told me like, well, you chose the circuitous route to what you eventually have to do. So you need to go back there. And I just did, despite myself, hat in hand. They gave me a second shot. And I still did not know really what the Golden Dawn was. And so I was able to go through the initiations of the Outer Order without sort of projecting my expectations or my thoughts or my desires onto the system. And I really found that the system revealed itself quite deeply and thoroughly to me. It would be kind of like if me and you, I see this a lot now, right? Because by the way, now, I've been an adept for many years now, 7 years or something like that. But also, I'm the imperator. I run the North Carolina temple of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn under the Ciceros. So that's out of Asheville. So as an administrator and a teacher, I do see a lot of people coming in, and especially now that occultism is much more, it's just out there. Like this kind of shit didn't exist when I was getting into it. I will find people that come in and they kind of want to like regale you with how much they know about the system. And it's like, listen, guy, this is going to fuck you up. This is whatever you're doing. Stop reading. Doesn't matter how much you know. The point is not to know it. The point is to live it. And you can't live it if you know what's coming. And if you're struggling with trying to fit your expectations into this thing, it'd be like if you went to coffee with me and I told you who I thought you were the whole time. And you would never get an opportunity to show me tell me who you actually are. So I see that a lot in modern initiates. And I say that as a precaution for anybody that's interested in joining something like the Golden Dawn. It's not about the rote knowledge. There's that. Of course, there's that. but that's you know, I feel like I truly was blessed. I lucked out not knowing what this thing was, but being able to suspend my disbelief and be surprised every time. You know, it was a real golden time in my life, no pun intended, of self-discovery. And the initiatory trajectory for me absolutely renovated me. People who knew me before would probably regard me as unrecognizable now, not in terms of physicality, but the type of person I am. I was not a great guy.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yeah, one thing I do, yeah, I mean, I would even agree to a certain extent. I don't know if it was like kind of what you're getting at too, but like, yeah, I think even self-experience, you know, like your experience doing this shit is really something that you need to rely on besides just reading, of course. All right, so like, what would be? Oh, we got somebody jumping in late with us. Here we go. We got Matt Mora. What is going on, Matt? How are you?
Hey,
I'm gonna let everybody know what's up with you real quick.
Sorry for getting in late. Was busy with some family stuff, but yeah, you can always find me at MattMora19 on all socials. That's X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And yeah, just pretty excited to be here and hear about Frater RC and seeing Ike again. And hey, Ethan. So let's go.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I don't know who would
Nice
want to kind of take
you,
off. Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, just nice to meet you, Matt.
I don't know who would maybe want to kind of take this off, but I guess to get into it, like, what is the history of the Golden Dawn? How did it come to be?
That's a big question, my friend.
Take it away, Ike.
Well, I want to point people to the video that I did. I did a 2-part documentary series on what is the Golden Dawn, and I covered the history, the sort of the first class, you know, the founding group and its influences in 1888 in London. And then I progressed until about the split of the temple in the early 1900s. And then the second part of it covered like the second class or really the next generation, Dion Fortune, Israel Regardie, Aleister Crowley, and these people up until the time of the closing of Whare Ra, which was a temple founded by Robert Falcon in New Zealand. Really, it was called Templum Thalasis Smaragdum, the Emerald Sea, but it got the name Whare Ra because it was like sort of the indigenous, I guess, Maori name for that area. So they closed their doors in I think 1978 or 79, and at that same time, completely unbeknownst to them, Chick and Tabitha Cicero in Georgia in the United States were opening. They were consecrating their Vault of the Adepts. They had it consecrated actually by Israel Regardie, and so they started that line from Israel Regardie of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is where I stand now. That's the lineage that I'm in, but it is a long and very, very interesting history. Lots of scandal, lots of intrigue, lots of cloak and dagger aesthetic. So I did like 2-hour-long documentaries on it, and I just covered the basics, but I'm interested to see. Frater RC has been reading our friend Melissa Seam's latest book, Light and Extension, about the Bradford Temple in 1888. I'm interested to see if he's got anything that kind of jumps out of his mind right now concerning the early history of the Golden Dawn.
Very nice.
Yes. Well, there's been a number of revelations from some of the things she's unearthed, and some of those things that I find most revelatory, she was surprised and thought that they were just common knowledge. I'm like, goes to show you, we're not always all in the know on what each other knows. So that's why things like this crossing over, extra traditionally, from different orders and having people talk, though it seems is in, of course, I think the same order as Ike. Don't want to speak out of school, but she mentions that in her book, and I think that's a fact. what can I say? The early days of the Golden Dawn. I mean, this is about the founding of the Horace Bradford Temple, which was famously considered and denigrated in other history books as a sort of a misogynist, chauvinist temple because they didn't want women to be allowed to join. And it really highlights the controversies that they faced in the early pseudo. I don't know why it's called a schism, because it was just like 3 members leaving, which to me doesn't constitute a schism. That's just churn, you know, to use a modern term for it. And also people go find their own ways, you know. It's not a.
Oh, we lost you there, Frater. For some reason your volume isn't working.
Oh, Jin's here.
Yeah, and Frater, we lost your volume. We can't hear you, sir. Oh,
It doesn't look like he's muted or anything. It might just be
might be like it just went out.
Microphone issue.
Yo, you might have to leave and come back, honestly. I hate to do that to you, but you might actually have to sign out and just click back in. There we go. Well, Jin, while we're waiting for Frater RC to come back, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. So I sincerely apologize for being a bit late. That's not my style, but I was, and so I'm just really excited to be here. People can check me out at Twitter at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn, or at thresholdsaints.com or at the true TRVE greylodge.com. Of course, this is also connected to our YouTube channel, of which Matt is both the webmaster and the YouTube social media coordinator, so we really appreciate that. Our next Grey Lodge is February 13th. Will is the Cause of Fire exposition on Gnostic set. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you guys so much. I had hoped to open with some Enochian questions, as I had texted Nick this like at 3 o'clock this afternoon, but well, I'll get to them at the end. And yeah, I'm just excited. And thank you guys so much. Ike, of course, Ethan, Matt, and of course, boss, Mr. 93. Appreciate it very much.
So, I mean, while he's kind of fixing his situation over there, I can talk a little bit about the earliest foundation of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn for anybody that's interested. And then maybe he can take over on some of the later details. But effectively, it was a magical society that was formed in 1888 in London, England, by a group of Freemasons, William Robert Woodman, William Wynne Westcott, and Samuel Little Mathers. People know him as McGregor Mathers. He kind of gave himself that moniker because he had pretensions to Scottish Highland ancestry. But these were Masons, and they were also Rosicrucian Masons. Okay, so they all belonged to a Rosicrucian body in Masonry called the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, which is Latin for the Rosicrucian Society in England. And that was founded in, I believe, the 1850s by Robert Wentworth Little, who was another Mason. And it was drawn really from its inspiration was also drawn to some capacity from a German group that was operating, a Rosicrucian group called the Golden Rosenkreuz, the Order of the Golden Rosy Cross. And these guys were primarily studying alchemy. They were all master masons, but they were operating in Germany in the 1750s or 60s. So gentleman started that. His name was Hermann Fichtold. So there's a lot of background that filters into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn's founding that is very much so Rosicrucian. Of course, there's all sorts of things at play, like the Theosophical Society and what's called the esoteric section of the Theosophical Society, the Hermetic Society, which was run by the anti-vivisectionist and author Anna Kingsford, and myriad other sort of influences. But the main picture to paint, I think, is the Gestalt is really the time period, and this, post-industrial revolution sort of England, where and it was Victorian, but really moving into Edwardian. England. So it was, when monarchs change, especially, before they were, kind of vestigial, that when monarchs change, like the culture of the country changes. And so this was also, right, the turn of the century, right? So there's this, it's the beginning of this great sort of change. And we see a lot of interest in occultism, and Freemasonry, and particularly a continuation of what some academics refer to as the Rosicrucian furor, that sort of that spread like wildfire after the Rosicrucian manifestos were published anonymously in Kassel, Germany, in the early 17th century, so 1600s, and it just swept across Europe. The literati at the time were, very much so interested in this, and there was a lot of overlap, specifically with Freemasonry. But a lot of it too you have to understand that it was also reactionary to sort of like, the post-enlightenment ideal, the death of certain forms of high spirituality and preference for what would become scientific materialism. So there was I consider the Golden Dawn to be something that is forged of all of these stresses and all of these historical lines. But I think it's really important to note that there's a very strong relationship to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and Freemasonry, particularly the Rosicrucian brand of Freemasonry. The Golden Dawn, its derivative orders, which we can get into later, like the Alpha et Omega, all of Crowley's sort of stuff, the AA and the OTO, sort of, and you've got the Stella Matutina, which was the London branch after the order had suffered a schism, and you have even Dion Fortune, right? She gets trained in the Golden Dawn and the Stella Matutina and the Alpha et Omega, and she starts the Fraternity of Inner Light, which is now the Society of Inner Light. And so all of these branches of esotericism definitely, hands down, influenced Franz Barden, right? I mean, all these branches of esotericism ultimately come from the Golden Dawn. But the goal, and this is the last point I want to make, I'll switch it over to Frater RC, but the Golden Dawn comes out of Freemasonry. Okay, so a lot of people out there, I know, maybe in your audience, regard Freemasonry as this kind of, as the Black Lodge kind of thing, the dark stuff, and that's just not the case. Yeah, all of this stuff is very much dependent on that Freemasonic network of esotericists, scholars, and practitioners. That was what Freemasonry enabled people to do at that time, and still does. It lends itself to a network, a vast network of people very, very interested, at this time, especially particularly in esoteric concerns regarding Freemasonry. And so the Golden Dawn was not just a creation of one or two or three people, but it was, I would say, a century at least in the making.
That's interesting with the Golden Dawn and the Freemasonry, and then you have, I'd say the OTO was originally Freemasonry too, wasn't it? Before they,
yeah, and Theodore Reuss and William Wynne Westcott would visit each other. They would trade charters and things like that. Masonic, here, you take this order, I'll take that order. They were very much conversant with each other. They met frequently.
Melissa seems in Light in Extension, her new history book of the Bradford Golden Dawn Temple, which also covers what it became, which is the August Order of Light, and also the Theosophical Society and its various esoteric sections, including, like, they had an esoteric section called Horus, esoteric section of the Theosophical Society, that all the members of the Golden Dawn Horus Temple were also members at. So there was many groups. When we think of today, and where you'll hear talk about the plethora of groups emerging all the time everywhere. So that's not new, actually. From reading this book in particular, I'm realizing this was going on then too. And it's actually been going on all the time, just nonstop creative, magical effulgences from the esoteric minded people constantly forming and emerging and re-emerging as new and different groups and reforming. So there's a lot to say on that. And I highly recommend this book to everyone. You can get it signed soft cover from Melissa Seams, the Light and Extension, really beautiful full color images of Golden Dawn, an original Golden Dawn temple. We've never seen an archive of data and images like this before in our tradition. It's caused the reconfiguration of understanding as some tools as central as like the Hierophant and Hegemon scepters being based gold and then highlighted red instead of the reverse, which is the modern standard. But yeah, they emerged out of this plethora of groups, and I like to think of the Golden Dawn as emerging more out of the Rosicrucian ethos than the Masonic one, but they were one and the same for those people at that time, absolutely. Actually, I just read today in the chapters I was reading, I put in a good 4 hours into this today. I'll get through it soon and have Melissa on stream. I was just reading through Westcott mentioning in his retirement letter about how much he appreciated Franz Hartmann's book. Franz Hartmann was one of the founders of the original OTO prior to the Crowley reformation of the OTO in his likeness. And Franz Hartmann was a really interesting writer. I actually audiobooked his entire Magic, White and Black, which is what Westcott references on my podcast. You can hear me read every single chapter there. And it's a really interesting book. So what I was saying before, my technical difficulties from my poor, shoddy Canadian internet. I promise I'm straight into the Ethernet, got all the best cables, but still we have bad internet in Canada. No matter what you pay, you just can't pay for better. I was saying that, the Horace Bradford Temple really didn't like the idea of women being a part of it, and it shows how ahead of its time the Golden Dawn was, with Westcott in particular, but Mathers as well, really standing behind the idea of both genders admitted on equal ground. And a lot of people just didn't like that. But, the Golden Dawn broke free from its Masonic origins quite distinctly in its inception, not progressively over time, in its inception. And you could say that's because it was full of bohemians, but it was also full of clergymen and doctors, right? Reverends. Artists were a part of that, like playwrights, Nobel Prize winners, Aleister Crowley, a wide slew of characters. And even after the schism and and the interregnum period of the Morgan Wrote Order, and then the formation of the Mathers branch, the Hermetic Order of the AO, which is commonly thought of as Alpha and Omega, but maybe AO was meant as a Egyptian word, a rendering of an Egyptian word for Horus or the sun or something, I can't recall. And then the more magically inclined people, they say, went to the Stella Matutina with Dr. Felkin and Yeats, because Yeats really took over when Mathers was expelled from his own order. And that was due to Mathers revealing the fact that Westcott had forged the cipher manuscripts based on Mathers' work. So Mathers created the Golden Dawn Order. I think this is quite succinctly and definitively argued by Dr. Tony Fuller's recent 2 revised histories in the brilliant Light Extended series by Frater Yekida, Cherubim Press. So the Light Extended is one of the essay series in the Golden Dawn tradition that's still being published. There's a new one coming out soon. And Fuller really shows that the system was already written prior to the formation of the cipher manuscripts. So the cipher manuscripts were based on Mathers' work and written retroactively by a scribe for Westcott to impose or indicate that he had some deeper role to play, and including the fabrication of Anna Sprengel, who was given the same magical motto as Anna Kingsford, the founder of the Hermetic Society in Dublin. And so that might have been a sort of subtle nod to the fact that Kingsford was who Westcott was spiritually referring to when he talked about Sprengel. That's it. That's my opinion from my reading of that. But I think it's clearly the case that, yeah, we definitely know that the Golden Dawn system now did not come from any manuscripts from Mackenzie or anything like that. They weren't pieced together from some German order, that doesn't hold up. There was no Enochian on the continent. This was Mathers' project that he spent years working on, showed them to Westcott. Westcott had someone fabricate the cipher manuscripts and to write himself in as co-head, co-leader. and they had this power struggle for years until eventually Mathers clearly just said, look, enough. I created this system. Westcott's a huge part of it. There's no doubt about that. Even after the schism, Westcott still rejoined Mathers' branch of the order, right? He didn't go with Falcon, though he did take higher grade initiations from him. And what this all leads to, you might think, oh, it's chaotic, it's confusing, they're a mess. No, they were all still working with each other. They were the Stella Matutina people were still working with Brody Inns and the guide Frater Shemesh up in the Cromlech Temple in Edinburgh, where Brody Inns was running the big temple in Mathers orders. And Yates went through the Falcon higher grade initiations, as did Westcott. And they all, what we see is serious magicians wanting to do serious work together, I think. That's what is really emerging. Every time I dive into the stew of history, especially the magical history, I do come up with a bit of clarity from all the quagmire. And it's interesting because it's rewarding to dive into history in that way.
Yeah, one thing I did want to ask, and I think you kind of basically just said it yourself. Maybe I even ask your opinion, and I know like you may not feel comfortable answering on the OTO, but I've often wondered if the Golden Dawn and the OTO both had like some Rosicrucian, flavor to them, like or something.
Well, the Golden Dawn is explicitly a Rosicrucian order. That's its fundamental basis. And you know what's fun? You know who argues this against this the most is PhDs. And then they'll say things like, I was part of a RENCEP chat. No shade on RENCEP. It's great that they're hosting these things so that we can get this knowledge to PhDs, because PhDs are great. They have a tremendous skill set at their fingertips, but they don't study the granular things that magicians do in their own traditions as much as magicians do, right? There's none. I've never seen a PhD who even has written books on Enochian know as much about Enochian as Enochian experts, because we're obsessed, because this is our life. It's our life. It's their book. It's a book for them, but it's our life.
Yeah,
so
and there's not much like you can't. You're not there. There's just certain stuff that you're never going to be able to know unless you practice it with sincerity. Not just practice it as an experiment, an intellectual experiment, but to actually do the work and commit to it with sincerity.
So not only did they argue that the Golden Dawn wasn't Rosicrucian, some PhD, thank God I can't remember who it is, because I would definitely say their name, but they also were like, no, Rosicrucianism was about healing, and the Golden Dawn isn't involved in anything to do with healing. I'm like, that's all we do. That's like all we do. Like, oh my God. Like the reason a lot of people loved joining our temple was because they're like, oh, I've been a part of a lot of new age flaky healing stuff, or maybe I've done some therapeutic touch. Oh, I got into Reiki. That was serious. But then they came to our temple and they were like, wow, you guys, like everything that I thought that my teachers, like, dear Lord, how serious do we dive into that stuff? We take it all the way. And the hundreds of people I initiated as a Hierophant and as an initiating officer over those years, like, I had guys who were in AMWORK for 40, 50 years come through their Neophyte initiation, say that meant more to me than everything I've done the entire previous part of my life. None of it holds a torch to what I just went through. And they were not talking about the ritual rubrics. Like, that's a part of it, but they were talking about the magic we did and what they experienced and saw in the through the ceremony. So yeah, the Golden Dawn is very Rosicrucian. Not so much in the outer order. It's a preparatory order in many ways, though it could be the whole piece of the pie, depending on what you're into. It doesn't have to lead to the inner order, but it's completely based on Rosicrucianism. And the OTO is explicitly as well, especially if you're talking about the original OTO of Franz Hartmann and those. Franz Hartmann, all those guys are Rosicrucians, right? They're all looking back to the Ordene Goldene Rosenkreuz in Germany. And that order itself is looking back to the original writers of the manifestos in northern Germany. Yeah. And all of them are looking back to John Dee and Hermeticism. They're all looking at the Hermetica, the Chaldean oracles, the original, ancient teachings. That's what they're all trying to draw into the present.
Yeah, I think too, it's just to tack on to what you say about this idea of the Golden Dawn, supposedly not healing, and Rosicrucianism is about healing. there is this kind of legalism that permeates modern education and educational, what I like to call performative intellectualism. It is something that is so committed to getting ever more granular, ever more analytical, that you end up learning yourself stupid. So it's this kind of thing where it like, you cannot see the forest for the trees. You can't see anything. You can't see the trees for the trees. You're too obsessed with, well, it's not a tree because the bark is this material here is made out of carbon, and it's like, there's no ability anymore to kind of like pull out and like, okay, yeah, rip your head out of this gigantic, washing machine and look around at stuff. Now, that's not to criticize everybody, because obviously RC and I, we interview and are friends with a lot of scholars, and we take a scholarly tack ourselves. But I think that there is a trend out there of that is permeating the mainstream, to the point where some people who really, really want to join an esoteric order and experience initiation are going to have a really hard time doing it, because they're going to keep bringing, as I said earlier, this reductionist perceptual filter. They're going to keep bringing their projections a lot of the times, and you can't, and our Frater RC and I don't agree about everything, but I'm interested to hear what he has to say about something like this. But I find a lot of people right now, the last 5 years, they're trying to understand esotericism with their exoteric minds. Yeah. And it's their two are clashing, because it's like, the thing that they're not realizing is that, like, everybody wants to, know the mysteries instead of experiencing. And we call them the capital M mysteries for a reason, because they're not a puzzle to be solved. They're an experience there's something to be experienced. And as Golden Dawn practitioners, we can teach you the system, but you have to walk the walk.
If you don't mind, I'll just jump in right there. I think Ike set it up perfectly. There is I don't know if this is true for like esoteric scholasticism, but it is definitely true about Vajrayana. And no matter how old the department, how phenomenal the scholar, there's something called Protestant presupposition, and it's very serious, actually. That it's so serious they even came up with a name for it. So it's the idea that a scholar can just approach any material and then have access to higher knowledge just from the material alone, not necessarily even from the text. And they can also have the higher, I'm going to call it Sephirotic experiences, but like I was saying, you could call it capital M mysteries or anything. Like they're able to access Dath maybe through just the overview, the historiography, or even just the textual tradition, which is, as we all know, everybody sitting at this roundtable, everybody knows that is not the case, because obviously esotericism is a lot more about occultism, or not occultism praxis, excuse me, especially if you are not an armchair magician. So I just want to say that I don't know specifically, like I have gotten a lot from like some of Owen Davies' books, and like obviously Dr. Stephen Skinner and everyone in that sort of adjacent to esotericism, as well as also being a practical esotericist themselves, although Owen Davies is obviously not. But so I think that there is something that they can do, but I don't necessarily think that their focus should be on the discourse of what esotericism is. Maybe they should study practical historiography instead, because I think they do a really good job, and actually much better than a lot of Western esotericists themselves, like studying the history in a more quote unquote, even though that doesn't really exist, objective way. I think they do. I think that that's where they're strong. I don't think that they're strong in like explaining like why this is the way it is, why this is done the way it is, why there's all these changes, all these little addendums, all this commentaries. I don't, and personally, I don't think that they're good at that stuff. So I don't know, but just an idea.
Well, thank you, sir. I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to say anything after that. No. One thing I did want to ask. Is going to kind of. I wanted to ask this and then maybe go back to like more actual like specific stuff about the Golden Dawn. But I guess regarding whatever you would know or whatever you're able to share with us, like what about like the logos? Like, you know, what do those like kind of mean? What are those symbolizing?
Which ones?
How about the one with like the triangle and the cross? The one that was on the book
God,
before.
Right. I mean, I literally spend dozens of hours teaching about that symbol just to give people a preliminary understanding of it. So, I mean, a short version of it. Let's see. Let me give you what are some of my favorite interpretations of that. Then let Ike give some favorite interpretations. I mean, I like the symbol that the only way we rise above the tree, you know, if the triangle is the supernals of the tree of life in this context, the only way we rise above the tree is through sacrifice, and that's why you see the blood red of the cross, right? It's only through sacrifice that we rise up to our highest and beyond, that we go into the ultimate mystery. And that's one thing, you know, that touches on what you guys were talking about earlier, about what is this really about. And it is, as one of my teachers would always say, that the mystery is the experience. It's not the data, it's not the maps that you're given to navigate a terrain that is ultimately always unknowable, because it always retreats from us the more we experience it. And we're human, so we experience less than 5% of reality, thank God, otherwise we'd lose our minds. And so yeah, you know, you have to sacrifice to rise upwards. But that's just one tiny interpretation of the cross and the triangle, because the cross and the triangle move around as you go through the grades, and that's one of you know, complicates things greatly. But you can another interpretation that's fun, a fun Christian interpretation, is that it represents the cross with Christ on it, and then the triangles, the three Marys at the foot of the cross. Another one is it's the cross of balance rising above nature, and the triangle is the three principles of nature, you know, sulfur, mercury, and salt. Or, you know, if you're pagan, you could see it as the mother goddess. So for a modern pagan perspective, that's all good. The Golden Dawn is a non-religious group. It's a spiritual group, but one of its strengths is that it's non-religious, which is why you have, from the beginning to present day, Golden Dawn initiates practicing Golden Dawn magic live from the pulpit in churches, whether evangelical or Anglican or Roman Catholic, even synagogues. You might find some rabbis who are initiates doing Golden Dawn magic integrated into their.
Oh, looks like
We lose him.
Yeah, he froze.
Mm.
Did you lose me?
Just
Yeah,
the last,
am I gone?
maybe the last couple of words you said.
Yeah.
No.
So,
Well, it's a system of magic, so it amplifies and elevates whatever religious path you're already walking. And if you don't have a religious path, guess what? It can function just like one. So there you go.
Yeah, and I mean, here's another thing to think about. Like, we say that, like, somebody asked me the other day, right? There's this line. There's multiple lines in the Bible that talk about avoid sorcery, don't get involved with sorcery. And I'm a Christian, and so people will, and you know, Frater RC is too. And you know, people will ask me, well, how do you square the two? And I say, well, the word there, 9 times out of 10, particularly in the New Testament, is pharmaki or pharmakos, okay, in Greek, which actually has to do with the etymological root of the word pharmacy. And it had to do, at that time, this kind of folk tradition was mixed up with, well, really, when you referred to it as such, you were referring to the concoction of baleful ingestibles, you know, things, poisons, the poison path. So it didn't necessarily mean magician. It didn't necessarily mean that, you know, do not practice magic, so on and so forth, necessarily, as it meant, you know, do not practice baleful, you know, I would say low magic stuff. And that's a valid criticism, because here's the thing. A lot of us, particularly in these communities, we don't call what we do religious because that means something different to us in our experience. To us, religion is an institution. To us, religion is a box somebody tried to shove us in at an early age and make us fit in. But at the end of the day, what religion is communication with the divine, and a form of worship and interaction, or at least some kind of ceremonial. So the Golden Dawn is explicitly theurgic. You don't really, you find that out when you get to the Inner Order, right? The foundational documents recording the Inner Order, some of the foundational documents, the earliest documents known as the Flying Rolls, they mention the actual word theurgia, the Greek word theurgia, theurgy, which is the techniques and technologies of magic applied to the development, evolution of the soul, purification, elevation, and illumination. Okay. So, what that kind of magic, if you were to go back in time, they would call this religious. We're working with archangels, for Christ's sake, but it's just that we can't really square the two, because it has a crude stigma, and it has kind of changed. It's morphed in its meaning for modern people, but I would say that theurgic magic in particular plays a large part of religious activity and states and religious experiences, states of devotion, states of the cultivation of internal eros, which is devotion. These things they have a religious nature to them, and they also have a place in Golden Dawn magic. But when you look at the cross and the triangle, right, at least the Stella Matutina rituals say that they represent life and light, respectively. So there's a lot. That's the entry level sort of thing for you to chew on there. And then, as Frater RC mentioned, depending on what grade you're moving through, the elemental degrees, cross and triangle kind of move. They penetrate and sort of permutate with each other to form specific symbols. But for me, that cross is the cross of sacrifice. And what's interesting to me is I've never heard of the three Marys, but to me, it always resembled Golgotha, right? Because it was a hill. Golgotha was the hill that Christ was crucified on. It means the skull. But that triangle to me takes on much more of a Pythagorean onus. You're obligated on that. That triangle, it serves many functions. It's a pedagogical symbol that teaches what we call triangulation, or really mediation, becoming the mediator. We say that such is the universe, and all of causality is composed of two contending forces and one which unites them eternally. Now, if you remain on this horizontal axis, and this is very relevant for our times, fellas. If you remain on this horizontal axis between the two opposites, between the two contending forces, you're going to stay in the fray, and you will not be able to effectively mediate. What you need to do is rise above, and this is called triangulation. And from that elevated medial position, then you are able to you've transcended and this has applications not just in socio-political settings, but in the interpretation of life as experience, and your navigation of life as a mediator. The Golden Dawn is not left-hand path, but the Golden Dawn is not right-hand path. The Golden Dawn really is a full tree, but the adept centers themselves in the middle pillar. They always root themselves. We have a foot in both worlds, but we're rooting ourselves through the middle pillar. We are a middle path system, the path of mildness, right? The straight and the narrow way, as it's called in the Stella Matutina portal ritual. Now, that triangle is what you're obligated on. You go to the altar, the cubical altar of the universe, and you put your hand on the triangle. Part of this can be seen as we are now putting you in the triangle of art. which is a binding mechanism, and you're being obligated. You're being bound to our order. We are putting a part of you in the triangle of art. And then there you're taking your obligation. But we also know that the triangle as the decad, which you can see here, it's the tetractys on my forearm. I don't know how good you're going to see that, but this emblem, a triangle composed of 10 points. That was what the Pythagoreans took their obligation on. They put their hand on that sacred triangle when they took their oaths. So there's a couple of things for people to chew on, but like Frater RC says, I mean, we could probably do like 2 full nights talking about that. So
I want to touch on something Ike said, if you don't mind, just quickly.
Yeah, go for it. Please.
There was a point at which, over the last 20, 30 years, many points at which myself and with others was wondered how hermetic really, though, is the Golden Dawn. Even the word hermetic wasn't always used in every description of the name and every iteration of the name. And it was only recently, as translations of the Hermetica, original Hermetica texts improved, coming to their final and ultimate form with the new translation by Dr. M. David Litwa, who presented at EnochiaCon with us last year, and he reordered them. He took out the glosses that Christian Wildberg and others have identified as insertions from a later illiterate astrologer, which clarifies the meaning of the text greatly, and reordered them as a structure of initiation for the Way of Hermes. And I was blessed and honored to do the Audible narration. Go to Audible, check out Hermetica 1, listen to me narrate the Hermetica. Dr. Litwa also translated. He teaches Coptic. He teaches Greek. The guy's a genius. He's a treasure. Why universities don't hire him to teach is a mystery. Well, a mystery to which we know the answer, don't we? See? Current issues. Hermetica 2 is the technical Hermetica, which has got a lot of the magical techniques from the original Hermetica, like which elements correspond to the eyes, the hands, different things like that, how to use the fire in the eyes, stuff like that. And going over all the Hermetica in the newest form by Dr. Litwa, and Wildberg's translation will come out eventually. And of course, he's got a very different argument that we don't really like, but that's okay. We'll hear what he has to say. It became incredibly abundantly clear that the Golden Dawn is way more hermetic than I ever could have imagined. And just in Ike referring to the traditional description of the meaning of the cross and triangle, which is the symbol of the Golden Dawn, not the inner order symbol, which people plaster everywhere, unfortunately, which is a symbol like that. Here, I would never even look on it in person, really, except in a sacred state, similar to the Sigillum Dei Emet in the Enochian system. You look at it mainly in a state of sacrality. But those 2 words alone tell you how hermetic the Golden Dawn is, because the whole of Hermetica, the whole Hermetist movement in Alexandria, whether you were a pagan, which was most of the Hermetists, or maybe Jewish or Christian, and those Christianity and Judaism look different in the 3rd century and the 2nd century, of course, but all of it is so hermetic in that it's all about life and light. Life and light. It all comes down to life and light. Even language like the Lord of the Universe and all the other prayers and invocations you see in the Golden Dawn, they are so hermetic it's not even funny. And that's what made me realize the through line through Rosicrucianism, back even before John Dee, is Hermetism. It is the Hermetica texts. It isn't some form of Protestant Christianity or mystical Protestantism trying to fight for its place in the Roman Catholic world of legerdemain and chicanery that spawned the Counter-Reformation. No, it was people trying to make sense of the Hermetic current, in my opinion, and I think the evidence speaks to that quite strongly. So, life and light. And what's wrong with that? The Hermetica is nothing but, if not the most optimistic of Western spiritualities.
yeah, and I would just add to that it was in dialogue with something like Neo-Pythagoreanism, Neo-Platonism. They were contemporaneous religio-philosophical movements. But the interesting thing is that the Hermetic tradition is typically thought of by most scholars as an ancient Egyptian wisdom tradition expressed in a Greek idiom. it's important for people to understand that the Hermetica was written mostly in Coptic, which is, a sort of bridge alphabet, a bridge system of letters to enable Egyptians and Greeks to communicate during the Hellenistic period when, Alexander the Great conquers Persia, and he's got a nice 2-for-1 there. He gets Egypt. And then he, from there he dies, and Ptolemy, one of his generals, takes over, becomes Greek. Not too long after that, Rome takes over. But all Rome really does when they show up is, first they quell any rebellion, and then they throw money at the situation. So it flourished. Greco-Egyptian, that synthesis flourished under Rome. And this is when the Hermetica was being written. This is when, or at least as we understand it today, in the Hellenistic period and the Roman period in Egypt. So they were in dialogue with each other. And to bring it back also, because I know this is very Hermetic, but it's also very Neo-Pythagorean, this idea of the triangle represents, in the Golden Dawn, the next phrase is, it represents that triune light. That triune light. Okay. So the word for higher consciousness, as Dr. Litwood translates that sort of generically in the Hermetica, he applies that, I think, aptly throughout as a translation for this word nous. It's a Greek word, nous, right? And they that is commonly translated as higher consciousness or mind. Now, Professor Walter Hanegraaff has pointed out that there are etymological connections and a broader definition of that word nous, where it basically also can mean light. So that divine nous, that what we call hypostatic nous, the mind of God is light, right? That's a distillation from the Hermetica. God is one, its substance is light. So this idea of a triune light is quite interesting, because that's the first stable geometric shape in Neo-Pythagoreanism. The monad corresponding to the point, the dyad or two corresponding to the, an indefinite line, and then finally the triad forming the triangle. This is what we see in like the Eye of Providence in Freemasonry. It's the mind of God now operating in the material universe. I can create. This is creation. From this, particularly in Neoplatonism, a la Plotinus, we get this idea of something called the three hypostases. The one, the divine intellect, or nous, and psyche, soul. And this triune pattern is the first thing that ever happens. And so therefore, everything else in creation participates of this triform or trifold pattern. And so I think there's these, the founders of the Golden Dawn and the people who contributed to this knowledge that went into the ritual, they really knew way fucking more than I think most people are willing to give them credit. It's this extremely sophisticated system. And the more you learn about the broader tradition, the more you see all the breadcrumbs and Easter eggs they put into it.
This is all so enlightening. I wanted to ask a question. I hope it's just an ignorant question and not necessarily subjective. But I love that you have a tattoo of the Tetractus. That is so dope. And you mentioned the Pythagoreans, who what few things we have left over from them. One of them is the oath, which it begins with kind of this, mention of the fourfold nature and the purity of four, and the cross has this mathematical rule to it that two intersecting lines result in four aspects or four corners. And it seems to me that in Rosicrucian symbolism, there's this fourfold nature to things, often in a mandala-like formation. And then you also mentioned Franz Brandon, who his book, Initiation, and did you mention Franz
Barden? Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm horrible with names. And his book, Initiation into Hermetics, has this whole fourfold process or pattern into his magical consideration or systemization. I just was wondering maybe if there is an explicit fourfold manner within the order, if you will, if that question makes sense.
Yeah, I'll throw something out there. Obviously, the three then becomes the four in this series. The triad creates effectively the elements, which are really five, but the ostensible elements become fourfold. But you have that in the cross, as you mentioned. But what's really interesting is the cross of the elements is, as you say, two intersecting lines creating four angles, but what the way, and here's what's interesting, the way we discuss the right angle in Freemasonry, when we are asked in what we call our Freemasonic catechism, what is a square, right? Like a carpenter square, what is the right angle? The response, the proper response is the fourth part of a circle. The fourth part of a circle, meaning that each one of these angles, when there are four of them, it's called the quadrature of the circle. They imply something circular. And you find this in Rosicrucian symbolism, don't you? Because the rose cross is the cross of the fourfold cross with a circle in the middle, and right around that bullseye, and that's where the Rosicrucian rose is. And it's a symbol of this kind of fractalizing eternity. That's just a reflection looking at itself, like a hall of mirrors almost can be viewed in some way. But I would say, yeah, there's a lot of fourfold imagery, and that also corresponds to the Golden Dawn, which Frater RC, said earlier. That is a preparatory. It's specifically a preparatory outer court, so to speak, for what it's invitation only really to the inner order, but what can be extended in the inner Rosicrucian order. Now, the key to what happens to you in that outer order is you undergo a spiritual alchemy, which we break down into four elements, which correspond to the lowest four sphirot on the tree of life. So Malkuth would be your element of earth. Yesod would be your element of air. Hod would be your element of water. And then Netzach would be your element of fire. And then there's that capstone. After that, in between your entry into that you're leaving the outer order and then joining the inner order is what we call, the equilibration of spirit, where you're given the quintessence and we bring you back together. Because the first thing that happens in the neophyte degree, right, when you're newly planted, right, neophytos, the candidate is hoodwinked and wrapped 3 times. Okay, this is what we call their osirification. It's like you're being mummified. You're dead. And we bring you into the temple, and what happens is an officer called the Kerix comes around, and on the central altar we have what we call, the elements of the mystic repast of Osiris Onofris, Osiris the Justified. There is a rose in the east, a red candle in the south, a cup of wine in the west, and a paten of bread and salt in the north. These are, when the candidate is brought in, the Kerix comes in, removes those elements off of the altar into their respective quarters. This is the salve and of the spiritual alchemy. We are taking apart the 4 elements. And then when you go through the outer order, they're finally brought back together in what we call the portal degree, at least for the Stella Matutina. So that's my understanding of, or at least, kind of the boilerplate, the very topical way of talking about the fourfold sort of thing and how it relates to the Golden Dawn. But I'm interested to know if Frater RC agrees with that, or if he'd like to come over and smack me in the mouth for anything I have said at this point.
Smack you in the mouth, brother. No, I want to kiss you on the mouth for telling me how to properly prepare this leg of lamb I got in my Ninja slow cooker tonight. Oh my goodness. Getting some real Greek tips because, mainly my main use of ChatGPT is for cooking because I'm a celiac, so I had to learn to cook to deal with health. And I'm following your tips, and it is working way better than last time. Though I
mail me a piece
for a while. I will mail you a piece. Absolutely. I will send it through the Canadian mail, which is doing great right now. Yeah, Canada's in a great shape. I love what you said. And you know what's interesting, when you think, if everyone visualizes that rose cross, not the colorful one, the Art Deco one, but just the simple cross, equal armed or not, doesn't matter, with a circle. So like a Celtic cross. And the 4 division is very obvious outside the circle. But as soon as you follow any of those arms of the 4 into the circle, you realize that they all end up at the same place. And then if you remove those lines, what you have is the monad, the circle with the dot in the center. And that's the fundamental symbol of the Hermetica, of the Hermetic tradition, is the monad. It all comes back to the monad. And the monad is called the God, the Father, or Lord. And this is language used by pagans, keep in mind, by Alexandrian Egyptian pagans, who fundamentally in their spirituality were pushing back explicitly against the Platonic and even Pythagorean thinkers, which they referred to as basically like wasting their time with philosophical mumbo jumbo. So the Hermetists of Alexandria explicitly were saying, look, we're trying to avoid some of that Greek philosophizing, blah, 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 and get down to just being thankful to God for life and light, and that's it. Right? So no matter, and then you see this in the Golden Dawn tradition, it's what makes it so hermetic. No matter how many symbols and signs we show you, everything always leads back to the single point. And that's also why we start with that meditation 1, with that point. Though the original order didn't, but the Stella Matutina brought that in because they liked magic a lot and made things more magical. And then you see that prayer and meditation repeated and brought into the mainstream church, like by people who, like the great Anglican mystical writer Evelyn Underhill, who in 1915, I think, or 1920, wrote Practical Mysticism, which is a wonderful book of Anglican spirituality composed of Golden Dawn meditations. And so, yeah, she's like, I don't have much new to offer. I'll just repeat the Golden Dawn stuff and sell it to the Anglicans. And thank God she did, because now you can teach Golden Dawn meditation to Anglicans and get paid by the bishop to do it. Trust me, you can. It's fun. I did it for years. And so the other thing that was interesting I wanted to just mention was with regards to the division of numbers in the Hermetica is oh damn, did I forget? Yeah, no, I lost it. Yeah, well, that point was good still. That was something I think that needed to be, that's really, really interesting. Everything, it comes out from the one and returns to the one. And this is the fundamental Hermetic gesture towards life, of giving thanks for our life. And yeah. Maybe the other thought will come back to me. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, it'll probably pop back into your head at some point.
I brought my Yeats mug that I bought at his graveyard just for you guys today. In 2003, I sat on his gravestone for 4 hours to my new bride's chagrin while doing automatic writing and talking to Yeats.
Nice. Yeah, that's someplace I got to get. I got to get to. He's in Ireland, correct? He's buried there.
Yeah, he's buried in Sligo churchyard.
Yeah. I haven't been there yet. I gotta get there. I've been to the UK several times. I go to London every year, but never been that far north. So anybody watching this that wants to bring me out there, I do talks. Okay, I give presentations. So
I'll take you to Ireland with me, buddy. His gravestone reads, "Cast a cold eye on death. Horsemen pass by." I mean, the dude was hardcore. I mean, people talk about Crowley as being, Alec Howe famously called Crowley the greatest initiate to come out of the Golden Dawn. It's like, yeah, well, where's his Nobel Prize? Right?
But Alec Howe was, he's not the preferred historian.
He's still very praised. Actually, that reminded me of what I was going to say to Ethan. Yeah, when it comes to Franz Barden, unfortunately, I really practiced the shit out of his initiation into Hermetics from like 1994 to 2004. So 10 years, I really focused on that book in my spare time outside of GD studies. And it's a little bit hermetic. I think he would probably not have been impressed by it being called that. Like, that's not what the book is called. The book is meant to be serious training to take you to adepthood. And the original title in German is, which I think he wrote it in German or Czech, but I think the first writing was in German. Either way, the original title was Der Weg zum wahren Adepten, not Initiation into Hermetics. So yeah, the Way of the True Adept is what that book should be called. And that's why that's why you see, like, he starts off with Eastern philosophy in it. Not that you'd think there'd be quotes from the Asclepius or the Pymander or Hermes, but there isn't. It's these Eastern ideas, which is fine. Tatwas are great. Golden Dawn has been obsessed with Tatwas since the Theosophical Society hosted a presentation on them. Mathers was like, yeah, that's coming with us. And yeah. So there you go. My thoughts on Franz Barden. Some of his stuff's great. Some of it I think is questionable.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, unless there's someone out there who successfully used his lesson to throw a fireball from their hands. And if so, film it.
Yeah,
I
did
think it's AI at all.
I focused on his Key to the True Kabbalah and the letter magic sort of thing that he's got going, and I used my Golden Dawn correspondences instead of his, and it actually worked better for me. Part of that is the sort of the assimilation of a particular esoteric symbolic vocabulary into my, what we would call my ruach, right? And my sphere of sensation. So obviously there are certain symbolic vocabularies that are going to work better for me because I came to magic and through magic through the Golden Dawn, which it's not, that actually is not very common, to be honest with you. That the Golden Dawn is somebody like the actually getting initiated in Golden Dawn is like your first. Is you get your education about magic through there. Like most that I don't know many people that have and like Frater RC, hundreds of people have come through the temple doors, and I don't know many people who had that experience. But it's certainly
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Through the hundreds of people that went through the order that I met, the ones that did the best were the ones with no prior experience.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like me. I mean, I came through and I got through the outer order in just under 3 years. Like it was just boom, boom, boom. But it was like, but I also had my first temple chief, the Imperator, he was a harsh taskmaster. I didn't get away with anything. He made sure I knew this is not an extracurricular. Okay, don't expect the same kind of bullshit HR culture that is customer service bullshit that that is everything else in life in the 2000s, post 2000. So it's I take that with me too, obviously, and that's the role of the Imperator too. Like we're embodying Mars. That's my god form is Marshall. So it's like we have to be that counterpoint to the other two chiefs that are Jupiterian and solar. That are going to be a little bit more, understanding. But I would say that the people that do come in that have the least amount of knowledge of other stuff and the least amount of experience in other stuff, they're all the ones that like comprise, for the most part, they're all the ones that comprise our College of Adepts. We have a large group of adepts for a temple, and they're all, most of them are people who it's just been Golden Dawn for them.
I think Mathers and Westcott would love that. I just got to say, I think Mathers and Westcott would be over the moon to see that that's how things develop. Because in their day, it was like, oh, hey, how can we tailor this and present this so that we get more Masons to join from the local lodge? Or how can we get other lodges nearby and nearby villages to join? Let's present this way, Whereas now it's people, no one's like, oh, I should become a Mason so I can join the Golden Dawn. You never hear that.
Yeah, and I didn't become a Mason until I had been in the Golden Dawn for a long time, So
yeah, I joined Masonry after I shut down our temple. Yeah, and order.
Yeah.
Jen, was there something you wanted to ask? I thought you might have tried to say something.
Oh no, I was waiting till the end to I have a couple questions on Enochian the tables, but no, it's very fascinating. I mean this is all new to me. This is all very different than anything that I'm familiar with or well read in, or I mean Barden, sure, but like the actual institutional history, institutional practices, no. This is like completely dipping my toe into that ocean for the first time for sure.
All right, Nate, not a problem. One thing I did want to ask both of you. I mean, I think you kind of like referenced them before, but would you say that like Platonism and Neoplatonism is like an influence in the order, or at least like in the occult?
I would say that its influence on hermeticism rather than hermetism, right? I distinguish between the two because it's useful. Hermetism ended really for me with the Sabians of Haran in the 5th century. But hermeticism is like it's like the beginning of the Renaissance. Marsilio Ficino, Ludovico Lazzarelli, they're translating the Hermetic texts, along with, Ficino translated a lot of Platonist stuff, but really working that Hermetic stuff, bringing it back into the fold with the Platonist stuff, with now Christianity, which was the overarching, religious institution and religious paradigm for a lot of these people who had access to this stuff. Because the people who had access to this stuff were the people who could read, and the people who could read were priests. And that was almost it, So like, if you're a cleric, you can read this shit. So that there's a big difference between Hermetism, the early Hermetic stuff based off of, the attributed writings of Hermes Trismegistus, and then what happens in the Renaissance. And I would say that through Hermeticism and Rosicrucianism, there is a Platonic influence. For instance, and I'll say this, I'll throw it over to Frater RC. There's a line in that the Hiereus delivers, who's kind of the initiating priest. Now, the Hierophant is the mystagogue, and he actually brings the light to the candidate, or the candidate to the light. But hiereus in Greek is priest, and so he is actually the one who has to make sure that the rites are that he is doing this, really the sacrificial rites correctly. But anyway, it's kind of tangential. But he delivers this line to the candidate, and he says, "Remember that mortals who understand the body alone cannot. Things divine cannot be grasped by mortals who understand the body alone. Only those who are lightly armed may attain the summit." So that saying is pulled out of Rosicrucianism. That is an earlier saying in a Rosicrucian, I believe, 18th century writing. But what a lot of people don't realize is it's actually from Plotinus. It's actually from a 5th century, the head of the Athenian school. And he says, things divine cannot be grasped by mortals who understand the body alone. Only those who are stripped of their garments may attain the summit. And that has to do with this idea that when the soul descends into materiality, and this is also in the Hermetica 14, when the soul descends into materiality, its pristine state is in some way marred by planetary and zodiacal influences as it enters the cosmos. In the Platonic tradition, specifically by way of Porphyry, who is a student of Plotinus, Porphyry says that the soul's pneumatic vehicle, the spiritual vessel that it descends in, is the planets lay accretions on it. So they put things onto this almost tabula rasa soul, and he calls these the astral garments. Theurgy, the theurgic ascent, is the process of reverse engineering that and stripping away the vices specifically that are accrued in that earthly descent. So when Proclus says only those who are stripped of their garments may attain the summit, that's what he's referring to, and it finds its way into the Golden Dawn by way of Rosicrucianism.
And in the Hermetica, it's one of the key images or theologies is the idea that if you are an initiated, and this is something that anyone can engaging in the practice of contemplation of the divine, non-physical reality, with a guide, ideally, of course, because it's the way of Hermes, and guides are good. But if you initiate, then your soul, which is inside you, what in Kabbalah is called the neshama, will unite with your nous. And your nous, of course, which Dr. Litwa is the first in his translation of the Hermetica to differentiate the use of the word nous, because in all other translations, no translator differentiated the use of the word nous to refer to higher consciousness versus lower reason and cognition. So all the other translations, you don't know if when they say nous, they're saying cognition or higher consciousness. We just got that these texts are only now opening up to us in the last 2 years. That's crazy to think that even Ficino didn't have that kind of clarity in his translation. Well, he didn't like the Hermetica, and he also made other crazy errors saying that the highest we can achieve is reason, but the Hermetica, that's a mistranslation. The Hermetica says to achieve the highest you must go beyond reason. So Ficino's translation was awful and incomplete, and he was traumatized when they published it without his approval. So yeah, you get in the Hermetica the garment of fire through your soul uniting with your nous. And your nous isn't just your higher consciousness in the sense of your Hia or your life force. It's your higher consciousness in the sense that it is explicitly in the Hermetica a daimon. It is a spirit, and then you unite with it and you die as a dying god on earth, and then you ascend as your holy go all places and know all things. I mean, fans of the telepathy tape should love that. And then you become not like the star gods or the angels, but even better than them, because you were once a dying god and now you're like the star gods and angels. So you're a double god, 2 times a god. And that's just so hardcore to me, so optimistic and full of life and light in its ideology. I don't know what could be a more appealing spirituality for the modern crisis we're living through. And the other point that's interesting is, Neoplatonism entered into Hermeticism. But, whereas in the original Hermetic thought, they were sort of pushing back against some of the Greek thinkers. And that's why, interestingly, academics are now referring to Porphyry and Iamblichus and all those guys as not Neoplatonists, but late Platonists. And that represents more distinctly the through line from Plato to those later thinkers in a really useful way. So if you start saying late Platonists to refer to the ancient Greek Neoplatonists, and then reserve Neoplatonists for the Renaissance reemergence of Platonism that then fused with what was necessarily a poor understanding of the Hermetic thinkers at that time, you have terminology and chronology. So there's something useful.
Yeah, and Iamblichus specifically, who is as far as a lot of people are concerned nowadays, it's like the godfather of theurgy, right? With On the Mysteries. But the onus he places is on the Egyptians and the Chaldeans. He's saying exactly that. He's working in the Platonic tradition. He's referred to as a neo or late Platonist, but ultimately he's pushing back on Greek rationality. Not saying that it's useless, because this man had an encyclopedic knowledge, but saying that you must exhaust that and go above it. And I think that Ficino was very much aligned with Platonism. But also what we got to remember too is in that period, right, you get this scholastic sort of reduction of Platonism really through Aristotle in the church. And Marsilio Ficino was not just, he's not just some translator, he was a priest. He was a cleric. So he would have inherited this kind of like scholastic outlook in terms of reason. But Iamblichus specifically, and then after that, right, pretty much everything associated with the Platonic Academy after Iamblichus, and there are some luminaries, right? It continues for like another 300 years or 200 some odd years. the academy in Alexandria and Athens, their understanding is, yes, we must get above the rational component. So actually, Wouter Hanegraaff, he refers to Iamblichus more of he says he was a hermetist. You know, he was actually a hermetic theurgist, because he's saying these rituals are supposed to get us, the ceremonial supposed to get us above reason, above rationality, and they come from ancient Egyptian and Chaldean, right, Babylonian, Assyrian temple practices. And to Frater RC's point, in the Golden Dawn, when you enter into the inner order, you take an obligation, as you take in every degree. And your obligation, which is quite dramatic, there's one part of it, arguably one of the most, if not the most important clause of the obligation. you promise, you vow to exhaust every effort to purify, so exalt my spiritual nature that by divine aid I may be raised and united to my higher divine genius. Okay, and people are like, okay, so what's the genius? Well, this is the Latin translation of the word daimon. And when the 18th century Platonist and translator and polymath Thomas Taylor translated, the Platonic stuff, and he was putting it out there, would have been available for all the founders of the Golden Dawn. He chose to translate the Greek word daimon frequently as genius, because he knew that translating it to the English demon would scare people and it would not communicate the same sort of thing. So this daimonic union that Frater RC very importantly mentioned is actually the goal of the inner order of the Golden Dawn. You're training the whole time to rise and unite to your higher divine genius, and you play that role of the dying god when you are bound, osirified, taken apart, and then you rise through the portal. The portal is the door to the that higher initiation. And actually, and one of the things, the first thing that you're called, and I this is in the Stella Matutina ritual, but I love it. The first thing you're referred to when you walk into that neophyte temple and you're completely hoodwinked, and somebody says, "Inheritor of a dying world, why hast thou entered into our temple?" That's, and you're called that twice throughout the ritual until you are officially accepted into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Once you are actually accepted and initiated, no one ever uses that term to you ever again, because you've begun the trajectory of ascent, the path of return, I guess, if you want to be poetic about it.
Thank you. I don't know. I know we don't got much time left, but Jin, did you want to try to ask one of your questions? Yeah.
Sure. So, Frater RC, thank you so much for that exposition on the history of the Golden Dawn. Of course, as Ike as well. I did want to turn to the Enochian stuff simply because I've been reading a little on it, and also shout out to our brother in the lodge, Solar Exile. He had some questions that he directed to me, and so I thought I'd come here and be his kind of agent and ask people who know a lot more. So basically, I want to know if someone has selected a table, a working table to work with, like the Enochian tables, how would one go about deciding the level of spirit that they want to work with for their purpose? And also, how would they determine what level of the hierarchy that they needed to call in order to enact their work? And should they go to the highest point of the hierarchy, or should they ask more of a middle or lower tier angel or spirit?
Go for it, Ike.
Oh, I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. We don't. So in the Golden Dawn, we don't. I
was distracted. I apologize. I'm getting a lot of really nasty abuse in the comments, and it's
it's still going on.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they won't stop. And then they're telling me not to defend myself because I'm a Christian. It's like, fuck you. I'm sorry. If you think Christians can't defend ourselves, read some history.
And I tell you right now, we're getting real prepared to defend ourselves. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
you wanna
coming.
shoot us in the neck? Fucking find out.
But anyway, if maybe we could, I don't know if you can mitigate any of that abuse in the comments.
Yeah.
Toss them out.
Yeah,
or something, but-
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to it at all.
Yeah,
I'll
me
go
neither.
in there and be a mod. I apologize.
Yeah,
No,
but
no,
I would say,
Would you mind asking your question again? Sorry, go for it.
No, not a
ahead.
problem. I probably didn't articulate it that well, so thank you for giving me another chance. So if somebody has selected one of the Enochian tables to work with, how would they go about determining both the spirit that they want to work with as well as the hierarchy from which to call that spirit? Like, do they go all the way up and ask the highest angel or whatever it is, or do they go and like do a more precise sort of mapping? Using that system to do their whatever they're doing on the table.
Yeah, in both the Golden Dawn version of Enochian as well as in the original, you sort of start from the highest. So in the Golden Dawn, you start from, with your Golden Dawn ritual work, calling down from the divine highest, the supernals. Then you open up the tablet, calling the 3 secret names and the king. And then you'd go to the sub quadrant that you're going to work with, and then work with the sub cross angels of the invoking and commanding angel, and then the specific angels under that. And it's the same pretty much in the de-purist approach, or the traditional Enochian approach, except there you wouldn't be doing Golden Dawn rituals with pentagrams and hexagrams and such beforehand. You would just be going through John Dee's prayers, invoking Christ, invoking the 4 archangels, and doing all of those sort of preparatory invocations and conjurations. But yeah, you end up in the subquadrants and then working with the invoking and commanding angels of the subcross, if you know what I'm talking about. You seem relatively familiar with this, so yeah.
Thank you so much.
Which angle you work with, again, depends on whether or not you're doing Golden Dawn arrangement of the tables or a traditional de-purist approach. They have slightly different ways of interpreting the sub angles of the Great Table.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Frater RC, and apologize for the chat.
That's
right. It's complicated because I really don't know a lot about this. Like I'm a sorcerer, I'm a magician. Like Ike and I have spoken about this, Nick and I have spoken about this. Everybody knows on the chat. Like I am whatever you want to call me. But in terms of like Western esotericism, outside of Hebrew Kabbalah, specifically Hebrew Kabbalah, and I of course take the DCS approach to that, I don't know that much. And I'm the first to say it. But because I have a higher degree of understanding in those systems, I'm a good tantric. Like I'm a strong tantric practitioner. So I think in a way it gives me access to a degree of understanding, not maybe the whole system, and I wouldn't necessarily be able to replicate it on my own. And I don't do ceremonial magic in the way that I don't think either of you would even recognize. So for me, it's much more like about process of consciousness. I know that I brought that up, so I appreciate that, and thank you for fielding my question.
Thank you, guys. I know Ike's got to be somewhere soon, so I think this is a perfect time to wrap this up. Thank you, Frater RC, for answering that last question. I do appreciate that. Ike, let everybody know what's up, man. And well, first off, thank you very much, both of you guys, for coming on. I really appreciate that. There was a lot of information. I hope that gave a lot of people a decent idea, what the Golden Dawn is. And they're both Christians. That's something interesting to think about, huh? Yeah, there's probably other things I would have liked to have gotten into. I don't know, maybe we'll do another show one down the road or something or whatever. But yeah, thank you both very much. Ike, please let everybody know what is up and where they can find all your stuff.
Okay. If you don't mind, I want to say one last final thought.
Oh yeah, sure. I was only wrapping it up because I was worried about
No. I get it. I appreciate that. But I just feel like I really wanted to say earlier, but I didn't get a chance to, because having these conversations is awesome for me. I don't get tired of them. As a matter of fact, like it's like 9 o'clock now, and my body feels like I should be tired, but the fact that I spent time with you guys is like it wires me to the point where I probably won't be able to get to sleep till like after midnight now. So it's really stimulating conversation to me. But for anybody that ends up going through a system like the Golden Dawn, I just want to say this. First of all, not everything is for everybody, and that's okay. It's totally fine. But the people who do find themselves called and then subsequently delivered to a system like the Golden Dawn, there are inherent challenges in that we're kind of dangling a carrot on a stick in front of you to get you through those grades. And a lot of people, nobody's going to push you through them. But the way that the system is laid out is that it's sequential and there's a trajectory of progression. And the tendency that I find is twofold. People will try and rush through the grades and get through them as fast as they can. And then on the other hand, there'll be people who kind of tarry in an attempt to perfect the spiritual alchemy. Okay. And I think both of those approaches are missing the point of initiation. It's not about perfection. It's about that progress, because you're going to stay on that elemental trajectory and hopefully on an ascending spiral. You've learned something about yourself. You learn how to do that work. The key to I think, the Golden Dawn work and any kind of work that you're doing, whether it's very, very simple or very, very complex, is about how deeply you can move into your practice. How deeply can you commit and enter into your practice with focus and intention and consistency and be where you are. We're losing that. And I think that that's really, really important. That said, I'm Ike Baker. I host Arcanum. It's a YouTube channel and podcast. I wrote A Formless Fire, which is a history of the Western ceremonial and alchemical traditions. I wrote Etheric Magic, which is a system of basically Western energy work. And I've got a new book coming out in November on inner traditions called Esoteric Mythology. You can find all my stuff at ikebaker.com. There's a little chat widget in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. You got any questions? I do courses. I offer one-on-one study, group course. A new group course is coming up this March, Techniques of Greco-Egyptian Theurgy. You can write about any of these things or anything else you want to talk about in that little chat widget. It goes straight to my inbox, personal inbox. So please be nice. And yeah, that's me. And I love Frater RC. This guy is one of a fucking kind, and I value him above. You're up there with the highest level for me, up there with ranking. You're up there with the highest levels of practitioners. I love you.
Love you too, man. Thank you very much for those hyper kind words, and thanks to your family for sharing its cooking traditions and telling me that I shouldn't be ashamed of how much dill I actually use. It means the world to me. I learn so much from you every time, and I'm just joking about the cooking, though it's serious. Like, listening to Ike, you have a special. This guy knows his shit. Like, I love listening to you, man. When the last time you guys were on Occult Rejects, I was like, I literally changed one of my lectures to my students based on a few of the things you said. Right? I had to give them all an update. I'm like, yeah, so I think I've been wrong about something for 20 years. And let me share this with you. Yeah. So I was, yeah, you're a great friend. And we're actually live tomorrow doing not tomorrow, next week, doing our the Synakis, the Arcana Synaxis with Frater Eleftheria and Sky Mathis. So we'll have a 4-way reunion on the Friday the 13th. Come check that out. It would be great to see some of you rejects in the chat. We love rejects. We just don't like abusive ones.
Yeah, we're normally pretty cool in the chat too. So sorry about that. We have enemies. And
I've been around. I've been doing this a long. Think about it. By the time I turned 19 and became an adept initiated in the Inner Order, there was already at that time, because of alt magic and the internet, thousands of people talking about me being one of their favorite teachers in the occult community back in 99, 2000, right? And I was being flown all around the world to give lectures on the Qliphoth and the St. John of the Cross, the Dark Night of the Soul. That was my specialty. I'm revising that book. It's coming out again in May. It's overdue because I wrote it in 98. So I've been getting this stuff. My family's been attacked. I mean, my family, you know, so like, you know, this stuff's real, and it draws out not just symbolic demons, but real demons. You evoke, by doing this work, by doing the work and dedicating yourself to life and light, you draw out truly demonic people who really do live for nothing but to cause as much pain as possible. And I this clear. I've currently got a message in my inbox outlining a course of extortion, blackmail, and threats from an OTO brother Mason. You know, like, people are evil. People are evil. They're threatening to kill my mom if I don't give them money. Yeah, like, this shit's real.
Wow.
And, you know, it's not a joke. And people who want to fan the flames of this, like Marco Visconti and others out there, like, you know, people who broke into my house, like David Griffin, like, you know, they're nasty, nasty people. And you got to report. Yeah, he broke into my house during a neophyte initiation and assaulted my sentinel. Yeah, he assaulted us. I had to come out of the temple with all the Dias officers. The neophytes left because they were traumatized. And yeah, this was in 2001, 2002. Yeah, man, there's some nasty people out there. Unfortunately, the light draws a lot of attention. Yeah, I'm you know, it's not bad to end on these cautionary tales. Actually, it's not a bad place to end because life is real. Life is not a game. And yeah, life is, you know, unfortunately, guns use real bullets.
Yeah. Well, and that's something for people to think about if they want to pursue the light. We have there's a line in the Stella Matutina 5=6 ritual, the ritual of the neophyte adeptus minor, that says, ever do the forces of darkness arise when the work of the light is accomplished in earnest. So you do attract that force. And there are certain things the Golden Dawn teaches you to protect yourself. And that is exactly why the first fucking thing you learn is the ritual of the pentagram. You know, it's one of the reasons that you use that. But the first thing we're focused on is, you know, CYA, cover your ass. But I got to run.
Okay.
I love you guys.
Thank you very much, Ike. We'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah.
Cheers,
All
Ike.
right. Yeah, damn. All right. Wild story, Fred RC. Holy shit. Wow. I haven't heard that name in a long time. Holy crap. Now, the first time I ever heard about him, somebody was making fun of him, actually.
I only had that one encounter with him, but yeah, he attacked friends of mine and members of our order for years, threatening us, doing everything he could to hurt everyone I loved. And, you know, because he wanted to trademark the name and be the only real deal. And now, so I'll be doing a Reddit AMA actually tomorrow at what time? I posted about Reddit 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing a Reddit AMA on r/occult. And you know, I want to say I have some of my best friends are in Griffin's order and in other orders that I'm no longer, you know, that where the leadership might not speak well of me, for example, usually because they have property of mine they don't want to give back, or because they forged my signature on a bank account or two over the years, stuff like that. But I still have friends in those orders because a lot of these orders are quite large, and you know, you don't want to, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, Jesus saved me from your followers is true also in the reverse. You know, followers save me from your leaders. You know, anyway, you got to judge human beings on a case-by-case basis, I think, and not just give them a pass because they wear a suit and tie or have a fancy white collar or have a judge or politician or officer in their name, right? Judge people on the contents of their character, as one great assassinated man once said before he died.
I agree with you on that one. Frater, would you like to let everybody know where they can find all your stuff too?
hermeticpodcast.com on YouTube, Frater RC. Got lots going on this year. Enokia Con is happening. Crazy amount of amazing presenters presenting at that. And so we have also a workshop in Austin in May. featuring Jason Louv and another well-known occultist. And then the November conference will be great. You can join the Arcane Research Society for an annual membership, and you get access to all the events and courses and everything. And what else do I have going on? Well, I teach and I train. That's my full-time living, is training magicians and initiates. And if you're interested in that, it's not lightweight. It's very active. So we meet every first three Saturdays of the month at 12 p.m. noon Pacific time. There's members in Europe who need to attend, and you can check out that training if you want to go follow the path of the Way of Hermes with me at goldendawn.initiation.com.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Appreciate everything.
Thanks for having me back.
No, hell yeah. No, you mentioned a few things. I was like, oh, I got to get him back for this. You mentioned the clip off and Dark Night of the Soul. Those are two.
That book's on Amazon. It was my biggest seller. Then it wasn't, and then I found it's because someone else was selling it, and they made 15 grand off selling it on Scribd. So I'm suing Scribd. They're like, "Oh, just sue the person." It's like, no, I'm suing you, motherfuckers. I'm not suing the kid. I'm suing the platform. So that's a lawsuit in action, and I'm now just rewriting that book entirely because, again, I wrote it as a teenager, and it just happened to be very popular as a 6-hour workshop that then I was flown to temples around the world for many years to give, and it was life-changing, like, to many people, and it was probably the first thing that got me on my name known, back in those days. I was so young, it really impressed a lot of people. They called me the prodigy and shit like that, but I just wanted to work with serious people and do serious magic and really push the limits of what magic could do. Right? Like, I'm not one of these people who's just happy to sit there content with, like, my own perceptions of what I think is going on. I want to challenge those perceptions over and over and over again. I'm one of these people who doesn't like to just scry, but, I want to test my scrying ability with remote viewing, with verifiable targets and all of that stuff. I started teaching telekinesis in the Golden Dawn Temple and showing people how to move objects, right? Got me in a lot of trouble because a lot of people are like, you can't do that. It's like, well, I'm doing it on Wednesdays at 7. They're like, no, you're not able to do that. I'm like, well, we're all doing it. So sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Come to class, learn for yourself. Points, clairsentience, astral travel, all those things. I mean, I grew up meditating since the age of 7, so those abilities were highly developed in me from a very young age.
Damn, that is crazy. Wow. Did you plug everything? Or no?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure. And mention that book one more time.
Well, on Amazon right now, it's called Sacred Magic in the Clipoth, the Tunnels of Set and the 7 Deadly Sins in St. John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul. I think the second edition retitled version for being released this year, I think I'll just call it like Clipoth Theurgy. Nice and simple. But what it is an exploration of the theurgy of the 7 deadly sins, and it'll be eight deadly sins this time for this version, and through the theology, the spiritual mystical theology of St. John of the Cross, and how he analyzes the dark night of the senses, not the dark night of the spirit. And the dark night of the soul is just the title of his book. It's not an actual thing for John of the Cross. And to understand how that plays out in the realm of the Qliphoth, I used Kenneth Grant's Tunnels of Set in Night Side of Eden, which, I'm not big into that stuff, but that I found incredibly useful and illuminative in contrast to St. John of the Cross. So, by comparing and contrasting, essentially, that good old exercise we do in college, St. John of the Cross with Kenneth Grant's Tunnels of Set, and using my knowledge of Kabbalah and theurgy and spirituality, I discovered quite a few insights that I put down in that book. Again, the write-up of that was just delivered as a paper to the Inner Order back in '98. So now I'm actually going to be rewriting it as a mature adult who's more than halfway through his life. So hopefully that version will be interesting. But I'm also going to do a workshop on that soon. So join my mailing list at hermeticmysteryschool.com if you're interested in getting a heads up when I do that.
Awesome.
And
Thank you
hopefully
very much.
guys will have me back to talk about that sometime.
Yes. No. Yeah. Definitely. We'll definitely get you back on this one.
Sweet.
Awesome. Appreciate it. And Matt, real quick, let everybody know what is up with you, please.
For sure. Great episode today. Thanks, Frater RC and Ike that just went out a little bit ago. And yeah, you can always find me as at Mattmora19. That's going to be on all socials. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, maybe some other place. And the project today that you should go right now, this very moment, is entergamu.com. That's GAMU, entergamu.com. So it's going to be an esoteric social platform, just a discourse layer, really. You don't need to keep posting stuff on yet another platform, but the discourse layer is kind of nice and will be very fun. A lot of cool stuff to build there. So it's on the pre-sign up now, and I should launch it in a week or so with at least some stuff there. So make sure to go check it out, and any questions, let me know on any of these platforms. Just DM me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate you showing up, my man. And we got Ethan Indigo. What is going on, sir?
Well, thank you so much, Frater RC, for sharing your wisdom, and that was great to have Ike on too. And thank you, everyone, for all your great ideas. Ethan Indigo Smith on usually all the social platforms, the usual ones, and I appreciate anyone who reaches out and wants to communicate. And yeah, writing occasionally, and making little videos occasionally too. So appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you, sir, for making the time to jump on with us. And Jin, the ninja, what is going on, sir?
What is up, boss? Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the questions and the field history of the Golden Dawn, because again, I don't know anything about it. And I apologize for being late. I had a sync issue. Obviously, my telekinesis is not powerful enough yet to unplug the drain. But anyways, I'll work on it. If you want to, I want to shout out Vanessa. So Truth and Dies, she sent me an Occult Rejects t-shirt that she printed for me, or hand dyed on an astrological date. I'm not going to say which one, but she did a black. She knows I only wear really black, so she did a black t-shirt for me. So thank you so much, Vanessa. Really appreciate it. Everybody check out her Etsy store, Truth and Dies, and she's also a part of our Grey Lodge. So I just want to say that, and she's also like a great support for the Rejects, and always makes appearance in the chat. So obviously now I get to really be one of the Rejects with my tie-dye shirt. So thank you guys so much. If you want to check me out, you can find me on X Twitter at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn, or on XNIG at Threshold Saints, which is of course the show account, and at thresholdsaints.substack.com, which is my Substack, as well as the TrueGreyLodge.com, TRVE Greylodge.com. Again, February 13th will be our big space for March. It's not March. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm sorry, it's late. February 13th will be our one of our Friday night Gnostic Mass, but we're doing a special topic, which is obviously on the Gnostic Seth. So check that out. It'll be live and, of course, posted to YouTube by one and only Matt Murrah. Check out Matt Murrah and all of his links, and then you can follow all of the brothers on the website. So, we've got a lot of stuff we're working on individually and together. So it's a really generative space, and, of course, a lot of to do with the show. And we've added a lot of new people in the last couple of weeks. So Brandon's part of it now, Magus in the Media, and Eros is part of it. So we're collecting the whole group. We're collecting the whole set. So, we can play 12D chess too. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it, Nick, Ethan, Matt, and Frater RC. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great night.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right.
Love what you guys are doing here.
Thank you. No, thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, and everybody in the chat, that's what's up. Appreciate all of you. I don't know what happened today with the chat. I've never really had comments like that before. Oh, sorry about that again, sir.
Well, you had me and Icon at the same time. Maybe. And yeah, that'll do it.
I think they were angry Christians anyway. So that could be from the conspiracy community. Never know. But yeah. Thank you everybody that was in the chat. That's what's up. Everybody was here to check out the live. That's why we go live. And yeah, check it out tomorrow. We got Crow 777 coming on with us live. And yeah, and until the next one, everybody be well.